Have you ever looked at a dosage calculation problem and thought, how am I ever going to wrap my head around that? If you're a new nursing student, which is who this is set out for, you might not have even gotten that far. You might not have even thought a single thing about dosage calculation, and that's okay. We're going to help you get through it. I'm Mr. Forney. I am a nurse and a nursing faculty member, and this video series, it's a 6-part series, will help kind of open the door for you and hopefully make it a little less intimidating. You are not alone when you think about math being intimidating. I promise you, I don't consider myself a mathematician. I sometimes say I'm a math magician. Kind of funny. That's terrible. I'm going to cut that. If you're afraid of dosage calculation and you're afraid of some of the nursing math we have to do, you are not alone. Math is very few people's favorite word. We don't have to do a ton of math. Fortunately for you all, the math we have to do ends up all being the same thing, just in different forms. The harder part, it's more of a word problem thing, where we have to pull what's important out of what's provided to us and then figure out how we're going to do it. But the actual math itself is surprisingly easy. So I want to throw that out there so y'all have a little bit of hope as you get started. Why does nursing math actually matter? Well, at the end of the day, as nurses, we're the last line of defense for our patients against medication errors. We prepare many of the medications. I know pharmacy has their role, but we prepare many of them, we double check them, and we can make a difference. We can be the ones who find an error. We can be the ones who do our math correctly and prevent an error in the first place. And we're another check in the list that keeps our patients from getting hurt. Unfortunately, every year people do get injured from medication mistakes. Medication errors is what we call them. And doing our medication math helps us not be the ones to introduce those, and sometimes we can even catch those. I found an article I'll share with you all in class if you remind me of this just devastating account where the whole chain failed. There was a doctor who placed an order for potassium, which is very common in the hospital, for a child. The doctor accidentally ordered 10 times the amount of potassium that child needed. The pharmacist didn't catch it, sent it on through. The nurse didn't catch it either, and that child actually died. And there were a few places where, yeah, that was ultimately the doctor's mistake, and I would have liked the pharmacist to catch it, but a nurse could have caught that, and that child could still be alive. So I don't want you to take all that pressure on you. This is part of a team. We exist in this whole health sphere where there's all these different moving parts, and we all have our own role to play, but we can bring something to the table as nurses, and that kid shouldn't be dead. You know, there's a couple of things. I'd love to share that with you all in class sometime. I don't want that to intimidate you. Again, if you do your job and you just think through things like you're going to learn to do, you'll be fine. But I don't want to sound dramatic, but people's lives are in the balance. Every shift you show up for, you're going to calculate doses. You're going to prepare the correct amount of medications. You're going to determine PRN medications, that's as needed medications. How much of something do they need? Do we have to incorporate the weight-based piece, which we'll cover later too? Don't let it freak you out. This is on a daily basis. My background is in oncology, and we had to go and double and triple check all of the chemo doses especially. Those are basically poisons that we give to people to help fix their cancer, but they're poisons, so the dosing is incredibly important. Further, if you work in pediatrics, that's with children, you'll have to figure out weight-based dosing for those sweet little babies, and IV dosing as well. That's not in this series yet. That's a little more advanced for where I'm gearing the series for, but that could be a video I make later. But IV dosing, how are you going to set the pumps? How fast are things going to infuse? Because you can't infuse some drugs too fast or too slow. You got to kind of hit it just right. So the math comes up a lot. And again, it's simple math once you get your head around it. So I don't want you to be scared of it, but it is math and it's important on a daily basis. Further, the NCLEX. You all may or may not have heard of the NCLEX yet, but that's our big test we have to take before we can get our licenses to nurse. So you have to pass the NCLEX once you finish nursing school to become a nurse. So it's important. I don't want to teach you all specifically for the test. I want to train you all to be nurses, but you got to pass the test, and the test is guaranteed to have some amount of math problems on it. Now, fortunately for you all, they follow a predictable pattern. They're not rocket science. It's just picking out the pieces you need, which I'm going to help you with as well. Now, for the math itself, I don't want you to think it's anything crazy. It is basic arithmetic. It is stuff you already know. This is multiplication and division more than anything. And it's all falls into one formula. You're going to learn basically, there's a couple little other things you'll have to learn, but it all basically falls into one formula that we're going to talk about in a few videos later. The one I always use is dose over half equals x over amount, so you'll hear that from me a lot. But you plug that in, you do a little bit of multiplication, and you got your answer. The hardest part is picking out what numbers go where in that, but this is also attached to the real world. So the numbers that you pull out of that associate to a real pile of pills or a cup of pills for somebody. So if you got it wrong and you think your answer is going to be, I'm going to give this person 100 pills, if you step back and say, whoa, when would I ever give somebody 100 pills? Let me check my math. It's practical, right? So you can kind of visualize it, and if the thing you're visualizing giving doesn't make any sense at all, you kind of have a safeguard there too. Now, what makes this math feel hard? Number one, medical terminology. Y'all are learning that now as this is directed towards, honestly, the people this is directed to start their very first nursing class on Monday. This is the week before getting ready for things. Y'all start your class on Monday. So the medical terminology itself may be intimidating. Don't worry about the medical terminology right now. For the math questions, it doesn't matter. It's just fogging up, clouding up your question. The next piece, the units. You are going to have to remember the units. Luckily for you all, in healthcare, we work in the metric system, and the metric system is very easy. It's micrograms, milligrams, grams, kilograms. They all follow the same rules, which we're going to have another video about, or certainly a big section of a video about those specifically. You will have to memorize some stuff, but it's not that bad. In practice, so for the tests, you can't use any of those resources, like what does a gram convert to? But in the real world, I want you to look that stuff up. I don't want you to rely on your brain holding every piece of knowledge when you're caring for me or my loved one. I want you to go and use your resources. So don't feel like you have to be an encyclopedia. That's not what I'm asking you for. Another intimidating part is all of our med math is basically word problems. So we are going to have to work on pulling out the actual numbers we need from word problems. Now, you might think of a word problem from high school as, Johnny has 3 apples, Susie has 2, that kind of stuff. We're looking at medication labels. Y'all probably have medications in your closet now, even like a bottle of Tylenol. We're pulling information from that and we're comparing that to the order, and we have to pull out what's important. It will be okay. And then finally, the stakes are high, so there's pressure. I get that. You are a human. I expect my nurses to be humans. I expect you all to make mistakes, but I also expect you to take this seriously. I do not expect you to make actual medication errors. It will happen. I'll be the first to tell you I've made some medication errors, and I feel terrible about them. I gave a stupid one I gave that directly relates to med math is I gave double the dose of Ativan to a patient, and they were just drowsy and lethargic and out of it. But I was in a rush. I didn't read the label as closely as I should have. I didn't pay attention. It happens. No harm came to that patient other than they were drowsy and kind of in la-la land that afternoon, but I felt incredibly embarrassed. I had to call the doctor and tell them, look, I gave them way too much Ativan. That's why they're drowsy. They're not having a stroke or anything. It was Nick the nurse's screw up. And it was awful. So it will happen, but do your best not to, and y'all will be successful. I feel very confident in you all on this. Now, what this series is going to cover, first video is the introduction. That's where we are now. The second video is going to cover reading medication labels. I'm going to make that one next. Pulling out what pieces we need. The third video is going to cover what actual conversions actually matter to us as nurses. The micrograms, milligrams stuff, teaspoons, tablespoons, ounces, that kind of stuff. We're going to go into that a little bit. There is just some memorization that has to happen, but there are some little tricks to help you get through that, at least in a practical sense. When you're in the clinical setting, I love all my little cheats and that sort of thing. The fourth video is going to be the dose over half equals X over amount formula. That video is going to cover what the actual math is. The fifth video will cover rounding and safety concerns. And then the final video is going to cover practice problems. How should you use these videos? Well, I'm initially preparing them as kind of your initial exposure to dosage math. The thing I like about this is you can watch these videos at your own pace, where you feel comfortable, and take as much time as you want. You can watch a video and then do some problems, find another resource, and go back and forth to build up that initial knowledge. Another place you can use these videos is if you need a reminder later. So maybe you're coming up on your final and you think, well, I haven't thought about medication math since 2 months ago and I don't remember any of these details. And you can find Mr. Forney giving it back to you again. It's available. It should be available forever. I think that's how the internet works. It'll never go away. If you need to, you can rewatch videos. There's nothing saying you can't. There's no real rules about how you use this as long as you get the pieces together. And finally, if you find these videos are not the way that you learn, or I got my lighting wrong, it's not, I'm a nurse, I'm not an expert videographer or any of this kind of stuff. I've done my best I can, but what can you do? You don't have to watch these at all. You find some other way. The standard is the same, the math is the same. How you learn it depends on how you learn best. So don't feel like there's any wrong answers for my videos. There are wrong answers for the test, but there's not wrong answers for my videos. So the way you use it, I want it to fit with you. Maybe you listen to me talk while you drive into work, or maybe you put it on when you're ready to go to bed. You just want to hear Mr. Forney talk about something that lets you drift off in the la-la land. That's okay. Whatever. You find what works for you, and I'm happy. And to conclude the intro video, I want you all to know that you got it. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of nursing students, I don't know the numbers, have gone through nursing school. Thousands have gone through nursing school at this school. They were all intimidated by medical math. Some of them it comes easy for, some of them it comes hard for. I have very, very rarely seen students not be successful in nursing school because of medication math. I have seen many students who thought they were awful at math and really struggled to wrap their head around it, figure it out and succeed, and they're great nurses today, doing the job we have to do. I believe each one of you all can do this. You're gonna have to figure out what works best for you, and you're gonna have to practice. But we're gonna help you get started. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. If this is on YouTube, leave me a comment or send me a message. I'll get back to you. If you're one of my students in the classroom, send me an email. I'm here for you. So stay tuned. The next video, like I said, is gonna be reading medication labels, and I'm gonna go ahead and shoot that here next, so I'll be in the same clothes. So you'll have the consistency. We'll be okay. See you again soon.